I found somebody's bad decision in an old vintage book, the Bible. This is somebody's family history. Their whole ancestral history is in this Bible that I purchased for $2, a vintage book. And so I know everything about them from 1740 until now. So let's dive in. Sometimes, a book will have wisdom, but sometimes it'll have mildew, mold, cigarette smoke. It'll smell like it's been stored up. So let's find out how we can make things better for these vintage books. Let's talk about the thrift store for vintage books or just old books in general. When you go to thrift stores, sometimes it'll have that smell. It'll be everything that they're selling, like clothes, shoes, and sometimes they will get an influx or a hoard of books. They don't know really where the books have been stored, and so they'll get these books and then they take them because people love cheap books. And then the store starts to smell. So, sometimes they really need to have somebody sit down and go through the books and make sure that they do not have any discoloration, which is really hard with vintage books, or that they don't smell, and then put them on the shelves. When you have these books and you get them from who knows where, it makes it really hard for you to hold on to the book, to keep the book. It's like you might find something that's really valuable, but how do I store it and how do I take care of it? How do I repair it? Because it is valuable. I want it. I know it's worth something. I love this book. Sometimes you'll get books that are inherited, like they were passed down to you. Your grandmother had this old Bible, and so now you got the Bible and you don't want to get rid of it. They're storing all these things inside the Bible, all the little notes, all the little things that your grandma has written in the corners and the highlights. This is a valuable piece of work here, right? It's old, it's got the discoloration, and you don't want to get rid of it, but it's been stored up in her basement for all these years, right? And so I have an example of a book, it's the Bible Companion, and it does smell, right? So I keep it in this acid-free cover so that it doesn't smell at my house, right? But I know it's beautiful and it's very old. And I'll put it up to the camera so you can kind of see the detail, right? So this is a book that I've had for a while, but you can see the discoloration, right? And the spine, and it does need repair. And there were also little things stuck. If you could see the little pieces of paper there that I kept. So when I got this book, there were things in here that were valuable to someone else. So sorry about the noise, but yeah, so this I know is very valuable. So I hold on to it and I protect it so that, if I am ready to offload it, it will be in the same condition that I received it, right? And so it does have valuable information. So this is a way to protect something that you received, a hand me down. And, it may not be of personal value, but it means something to the person that had it before and they gave it to you. So you have an extension of that, and it's not like heavy, but you feel guilt about getting rid of it. So this is a way to keep the item and store it, and maybe you can pass it on to the next generation, if they're going to hold value for it. Let's talk about the library book. Now, you may find some vintage books in the library, but let's talk about the sanitation of the books. When libraries get books back, there's not this process of, oh, we're going to, look at every little book to make sure it doesn't have peanut butter and jelly on it or what have you. So when you get a book, it may have some kind of, residue or what have you, the cover. You open up the book. Let me give you an example. You open up the book And inside the book, there may be something like little remnants or what have you, because this book has been handled by other people, right? So you may have like dust mites, you may have roaches. I don't want to scare you, but it has happened. So you may have just other little pieces of paper, but a book has history, so it does hold on to where it has been. So when you get a book, before you take it away from the library, just thumb through it quickly to see if there's anything inside the little creases, because if it does seem like it's been somewhere it shouldn't have been, then you do not want to get that book. And you want to notify the library, hey, this book is not sanitary and not safe for somebody to rent out. You don't want to loan something that could cause someone harm, right? So that's a way to do it before you leave the library, right? But if you don't feel too secure about even doing that, you can wear gloves. Put on some gloves, look through the book. If it looks like it's been through something, and then, okay, it looks fine. Yay, I'm going to go check this book out. But this does happen where books are so infested based on where they've been, someone's basement, stored up in a hoard or what have you, and therefore they are no longer valuable. And with something like one of these types of books, it would take a long time. I don't want to say a little bit of time, but a long time to go through the book and vacuum out each one of the pages, just turning the page, vacuuming it. I mean, it would really take some time. Then putting it in a container with some baking soda and shaking it around to get the smell out. You can also shake the baking soda in between those little pages and then letting it sit and then go back and then vacuum it, right? Wiping the cover off, right? You don't want to really use that much liquid, if any, on a book because it's paper, right? So the least amount of liquid, because some covers you can like spray them or wipe them down with a damp cloth, because they have that type of laminate finish on them. But for these books that require delicate handling and you really want to hold on to them, these are some of the ways that you can probably preserve them. And sometimes they're just past the date and they cannot be preserved, expensive or not, or valuable or not, right? I received a book that had cigarette smoke. And so it's like, oh, I really want the product, but how do I get the cigarette smoke out? Well, what I did was I put the book inside a container with some coffee and I let the book sit probably more than I needed to, but for about a month. And then that took the smell away, right? And so it smelled like coffee and then I just let it sit and air out, right? And so for situations like this, say you have a number of books that you received from someone who did smoke, you can do this with the coffee grounds. You can take them and just kind of sprinkle them throughout the book and then let it sit. I would just like do a little bit and then go back, let it sit for a little bit, and then dump that out and then go back and put those grains, put them back in, and then just kind of repeat that, right? You can also do that with baking soda. But basically you're trying to remove this odor from the paper, right? This material that's very delicate. So the first route would probably be baking soda, the dry baking soda, and then, coffee grounds as well can get odors out. So, it's just like, you go to somewhere to smell some perfume and they're like, well, how do I get that smell out my nose so I can smell the next thing? Well, they use coffee grounds to do that. They spritz and then you say, okay, yay, I don't like that smell. You go smell the coffee grounds, next smell, next scent, right? So the same concept, this may help you in preserving a book that you've received or it's been stored up in a place where someone smoked. Two of my most favorite books that I'm going to show you here have what's called foxing. So it's, yellowing. It's just basically they have, the edges are just like yellow, brown, or what have you. You can tell that the book is very old, right? And this book, the pages, for some reason or somehow, the way that it was printed, they're actually frayed. So it wasn't like, great paper that they put this on. If you can see, it's kind of frayed on the ends. And this may be from the handling or just the way that the publisher decided to print the book on this type of paper that did that over time. But I do. Now, you may find that you'll find something vintage and you don't know what to do with it, but it just looks valuable. I have been in secondhand stores, thrift stores, and it's like, I don't know what this is, but I know that it has some value. And so, I just hold on to the things until I figure it out. So many years ago, I'm going to share this with you. Let me pull it out. So I found this book, right? And so I want to say it was under $20. Okay. But when I opened it up, their stock certificates, right? And so if you remember the Del Monte company, right? Del Monte Canning. So they used to sell stock, right? And so people would buy stock and then in the company, and then they would write out a stock certificate, right? So in this book, are canceled stock certificates. And there's some that aren't even used. And you can see the discoloration here. And then you can also see there's some here that just look, they're discolored a little bit, down at the bottom. But, the seal would go here, right? And they're just beautiful. And then they have green on the back, but just wonderful. And then they would make their notation here, like, they sold so many stocks to this person or what have you, right? And so to anybody else, this may not mean anything, but the Del Monte company was a very prominent company. They're still around. You can, find some of their products on the shelves, right? It's like back in the day, my family only bought Del Monte, They only bought certain products because those were the companies that were around and they provided the best, right? So there's other companies out today, but when you hear Del Monte, you're like, oh yeah, that's a good company. So when I found this, I did not know that it would be of value. There's discoloration. It doesn't really have an odor. So I don't need to keep it in a plastic protective cover or what have you. But I have done that in the past, so it's like, okay, let me just put it in there, right? But right now, it's like, okay, it seems to be okay. It lasted all this time, so it's fine for now. But I just wanted to share that with you. So I've given you a lot of different scenarios of variations how you'll get books and they'll smell and then you'll need to keep them protected as long as you own them, right? And if you're going to pass them down, there's sometimes you'll get them and you'll need to clean them. Sometimes you won't be able to clean them. You won't be able to repair it. You won't be able to restore it. It will be destroyed totally and you won't be able to do anything, right? And you'll just put a value on it because it means something to you, right? Like that stock book means something to me only, right? And I'm just now telling you that I own it now, right? So these are just a few ways that you can clean books, you can protect them, you can pass them on, you can, sometimes you got to just trash them. But even though, you have a stinky book, a book that doesn't look the best, there is a way to restore, just retain them and pass them down so your family has something to hold on to, because it carries a story. It carries a story. So if your grandparents or parents have something like that, ask them about these books that they're holding on to, because that's something that you can tell your family, your friends. So yeah, I hope this helped you, and I'm looking forward to seeing your book, your new book. So please share with me online. I'm at Michelle Hardy XO on all social media. Take care.